As expected, former President Trump's legal team has filed an appeal and granted a stay following a Cook County judge's ruling to remove his name from the Illinois presidential primary ballot. Illinois is the third state to declare Trump ineligible to run for the presidency because of his involvement in the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. But there are some factors voters need to be aware of as early voting for the March 19th primary is already underway. And joining us now is political science professor Stephen Caliendo to break this all down. As always, thank you so much for being with us today.
It's my pleasure, Tia. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, let's get into it. It's great to see you, too. Cook County Judge Tracy Porter acknowledged her ruling likely won't be the final word on this matter. And now Trump has filed an appeal, which we now know has led to a stay, which means his name for now at least stays on the ballot. What could happen next in all of this?
Well, Tia, you'll remember, I think it was 3 weeks ago today, there were arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court on the Colorado case. And while that was an argument about whether or not the president could be kept off the ballot in Colorado, it really has wide sweeping implications for other states. And that's certainly what Judge Porter was referring to. So we have to wait until the Supreme Court rules. And in the matter of Illinois, of course, the Trump team has filed their appeal today. They're certainly appealing the judge's ruling. And so we'll see where it goes from here. But as you said, early voting is underway. Mail-in ballots are out. And so it does get complicated at this point.
It's interesting that you bring up Colorado because really time is of the essence here. The clock is ticking for the Supreme Court to rule on the Colorado question. Given that Colorado's primary election is Tuesday, what happens if a ruling doesn't come down in time?
Well, the ballots are printed, and again, early voting has started in Colorado as well. And so, I think Judge Porter was pretty clear in her ruling about Illinois yesterday that even if the name can't be taken off the ballot, any votes for that, the candidate, in this case, former President Trump, should be suppressed. That is, they can't count. But this is a really interesting part of this, Tia. As you know, when we vote in a primary, we're not really voting for the presidential candidates. We're voting for delegates who pledge themselves to those candidates to be selected to the national conventions next summer. And that's where the actual voting takes place. It takes place by the delegates. And so even if President Trump is struck not on the Illinois ballot, at least 51 of the 64 delegates can still go because they'll be elected with the rest of the primaries when we vote in March.
Now we know this is supposed to happen after the primary, and I'm talking about the Supreme Court setting April arguments over whether Trump can be prosecuted for election interference. Any idea how this could possibly go?
Right, just so viewers can keep it all straight, this is a separate thing that the Supreme Court is looking into that concerns Donald Trump in the 2024 election, and this is whether or not his actions while he was president of the United States are immune from criminal prosecution. So that would be federal criminal prosecution and potentially also state criminal prosecution if we start thinking about the Georgia case and then even the New York case. And so that will matter a lot. I think it's going to matter to voters. Some voters aren't going to mind one way or the other. They wouldn't vote for Donald Trump anyway, or they'll vote for him no matter what. Others are probably waiting to see whether or not the president is in fact found guilty in any of these cases before they cast the ballot. What the Trump legal team has been trying to do, as you know, is stretch these out so that there is not a decision before the election. Then, of course, if President Trump wins the election, at least the federal cases will go away.
My final question for you, just thinking about the timeline of the courts when we look at cases all the time, sometimes that process is a long process. Trump now granted this stay. Any idea how long this could possibly take?
Well, that's right. This is a tough one because if the court's not going to hear these arguments until April, the best we can hope for is that they give us a decision before the court recesses at the end of June. They don't have to do that, of course. They can take it until they get back together in October. I don't think they will do that. They've signaled that they understand the timeline. So now we're talking about a decision at the end of June, assuming if President Trump loses, which means that these prosecutions these trials can continue. Then we're still. We have weeks out for jury selection and preparation before the trial takes place, and then, of course, a decision by the jury. So we're really getting close to that Labor Day sort of semi-magical date where the Justice Department really doesn't like to do politically oriented trials near elections, and so we're getting down to the wire.
Yes, we are, and we'll be watching all the way throughout that process. Thank you so much, Professor Caliendo. You always break it down so all of us, even those that may not know everything about this stuff, can understand. Thank you so much for being with us.
I'm happy to be with you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Terrence, I'll send it back to you.
Yeah.